Namaste, Amisha Kushtobiti. I am JVN Dr. Meenakshi, Assistant Professor in Department of Shalakya Tantra, Faculty of Ayurvedic Science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. Today in this session, we will discuss the second part of the scleritis. In the previous session, we discussed the classification of scleritis, the basic clinical features of scleritis. Last type of scleritis was left. This is the posterior scleritis. It is an inflammation involving the sclera behind the equator, and the condition is frequently misdiagnosed. It is characterized by the features of associated inflammation on the adjacent structures, which include the exudative retinal detachment. What is the retinal detachment? It is the separation of the neurosensory retina proper from the pigment epithelium. Normally, the neurosensory retina proper and the pigment epithelium are loosely attached to each other with the potential space in between. Hence, actually speaking, the term retinal detachment is a misnomer and it should be retinal separation. What is the exudative retinal detachment? It occurs due to the retina being pulled away by neoplasm or accumulation of fluid beneath the retina following the inflammatory or vascular lesions. Next is the macular edema. It is the edema fluid collection in the macula, which is a part of retina. Proptosis, it is the anterior displacement of the eyeball and limitation of ocular movement. So these all things will be uh, uh, due to the inflammation of the adjacent structures. Then we come to the complications. What are the complications of scleritis? So there are quite common with necrotizing scleritis and include the sclerosing keratitis, keratolysis, complicated cataract, and secondary glaucoma. So there can be sclerosing keratitis. What is keratitis? Keratitis is the inflammation of cornea. So there can be inflammation of cornea with calcification, which is inactive calcification. It means implication of the inflammation of cornea complicating scleritis. There will be opacification of the corneal stroma. There will be calcium deposition in the corneal scar. And then there can be keratolysis. Lysis means the breakdown. Then keratolysis, it is the breakdown of the cornea, wearing down of the cornea. There can be complicated cataract. Cataract is the disease of lens, whereas the lens becomes opaque. And in case of complicated cataract, it is caused by the secondary cataract. Cataract caused by any other disease is called the complicated cataract. Similarly, there is secondary glaucoma. Glaucoma caused due to other disease. In glaucoma, there is a increased ocular pressure, and due to the increased ocular pressure, there will be damage of the nerve, damage of the optic nerve is supplied to the brain, and there can be blindness. Then we come to the investigation part. The laboratory studies may be helpful in identifying the associated systemic diseases or in establishing the nature immunologic reactions. So for that we have to do the total leukocyte count, differential leukocyte count, and erythrocyte sedimentation rate. Then we could do the serum levels of complement. C3 serum blood test is done. This blood test measures the activity of certain proteins, and protein is a part of the complement system. So C3 component. serum levels are test is done. Then immune complexes, RA factor, anti-nuclear antibodies, these all tests are done. Then LE cells for an immunological survey. Anti-nuclear antibody is called the ANA test. It is a primary test to help evaluate a person for autoimmune disorders that affect many tissues and organs throughout the body, like SLE. Then again there is a FTA, ABS, VDRL. So FTABS is a fluorescent uh, treponemal antibody absorption test, and it is a blood test that checks for the presence of antibodies to Treponema pallidum bacteria, which causes the syphilis. And VDRL is a vernal disease. Again, VDRL test is for the syphilis. Vernal disease research laboratory test. And next is the serum uric acid for gout, then urine analysis, then Montauk's test for tuberculosis. For it is a test for immunity to tuberculosis. Using intradermal injection of tuberculin. Then X-ray of chest, paranasal sinuses, sacroiliac joint, and orbit to rule out foreign body, especially in patients with nodular scleritis. Then comes the treatment part. Then treatment of the non-necrotizing scleritis and the necrotizing scleritis. In case of non-necrotizing scleritis, it is treated by topical steroid eye drops and systemic indomethacin 100 mg daily for a day, and then 75 mg daily until inflammation resolves. Then next is the necrotizing scleritis. It is treated by topical steroids and heavy doses of oral steroids tapered slowly. In non-responsive cases, immunosuppressive agents like methotrexate or cyclophosphamide may be required. Subconjunctival steroids are contraindicated because they may lead to the scleral thinning and perforation. So we should avoid the injections. Subconjunctival steroids in the form of injections below the conjunctiva. They cause the thinning of sclera and may lead to the perforation also. So in topical steroids are given or steroids are given, and later on the dose is tapered down, and in which these are non-responsive cases when methotrexate or cyclophosphamide may be required. So this was the treatment of scleritis, which is a serious disease as compared to the episcleritis and may lead to the blindness. Therefore, they should be treated first. Uh, Here we complete our session. Thank you so much. This session is powered by Digital Version 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it soon. Thank you so much. Meibomian gland. These are also known as the tarsal glands. As we have already discussed, they are the parallel rows of glands present in the substance of the tarsal plate, and these are present in the stroma of the tarsal plate and are arranged vertically in the parallel rows we studied. They are about 30 to 40 in the upper lid and about 20 to 30 in the upper lid. So their number varies in the upper and lower lid. They are comparatively more in number in the upper eyelid. They are 30 to 40 in the upper eyelid, whereas a little bit lesser in number, 20 to 30 in the lower eyelid. They are the modified sebaceous glands. They are talking about the meibomian gland. They are the modified sebaceous glands, and their ducts open at the lid margin. Okay, the ducts open at the lid margin, and their secretion constitutes the oily layer of tear film. So tear film has the three layers. one layer is the oily layer, and its composition, and this oily layer is formed by the secretion of the meibomian gland. Then the second gland of eyelid is the glands of Zeiss. They are also the sebaceous glands, but their site of opening is different. They open into the follicles of eyelashes, as the meibomian gland open into the lid margin, and this opens into the follicles of the eyelashes. Then there is an image which is showing at the upper side you can see the lacrimal gland, and at the superior fornix there are glands of Gross, and then there are glands of Wolfram below the superior fornix, and glands of Mens, then meibomian gland at the tarsal plate, the glands of Zeiss, which open into the root of the hair follicle, glands of Moll, which is near the hair follicle, and then glands of Gross at the lower fornix. Next gland is the glands of Moll. These are the modified sweat glands. Earlier, the meibomian gland and the gland of Zeiss were the modified sebaceous glands, whereas the glands of Moll is the modified sweat glands situated near the hair follicle. The gland of Zeiss open into the root of the hair follicle, where the glands of Zeiss is situated near the hair follicle, and they open into the hair follicles or into the ducts of Zeiss gland. So they can open into the duct of Zeiss gland or into the hair follicles, and they do not open directly into the skin surface as elsewhere. Okay, they won't open into the skin surface directly, they will open into the hair follicle or the Zeiss gland duct. So next is the accessory lacrimal glands of Wolfram. These are present near the upper border of the tarsal plate. These glands of Wolfram are present as the, here you can see the yellow color glands. These are the glands of Wolfram which are present at the upper borders of the tarsal plate. Then comes the blood supply of the eyelids. Which arteries supply the eyelids? The arteries of the lids means the medial and lateral palpebral. They form the marginal arterial arcades which lie in the submuscular plane in front of the tarsal plate. Okay, and we studied that in the submuscular areolar tissue, we anesthetize this layer because the veins and nerves and our veins, our blood vessels are present in this layer. So they lie in the submuscular plane in front of the tarsal plate, 2 millimeter away from the lid margin in each lid. And in the upper lid, another arcade, which is called the superior arterial arcade, is formed, which lies near the upper border of the tarsal plate. The branches go forward and backward from these arches to supply various structures. Then next are the veins. The veins of the eyelids, they are arranged in the two plexus, a post-tarsal and a pre-tarsal plexus. A post-tarsal plexus drains into the ophthalmic veins, and a pre-tarsal plexus opens into the subcutaneous veins. Okay, next is the lymphatics. These are also arranged in two sets, the pre-tarsal and post-tarsal. Those from the lateral half of the lids drain into the preauricular lymph nodes, and those from the medial half of the eyelids drain into the submandibular lymph nodes. Then the nerves of lids. The motor nerves are facial. The facial nerve, we have already studied, facial nerve supplies the orbicularis oculi muscle. Then there is a oculomotor nerve which supplies the LPS muscle, levator palpebrae superioris. And there is sympathetic fibers which supply the Mueller's muscle. These are the motor nerves. Then the sensory nerve supply, it is derived from the branches of the trigeminal nerve, which is the fifth cranial nerve. So here completes our anatomy of the eyelid. We have already discussed the layers of eyelids, then the glands of eyelids, the blood supply, nerve supply, lymphatics, all these things have been discussed here. In next session, we will discuss the diseases of the eyelid. So, thank you so much. This session is powered by Digital Version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you're satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you so much.